Hello and welcome to another Eagle Pajamas Try Stuff review. Today we're going to be taking a quick look at the digital deck building game, Deck Hunter. The ranking system that I use across the categories in my reviews is an SABC ranking system. Hopefully I'm not reviewing games that actually fall lower than C. If you're not familiar with this type of ranking system, I go over what generally is accepted for the criteria to fall under a certain ranking category in a previous video that I did on Monster Train. So if you want to check that video out, I do have a brief explanation of the ranking system there. So before I kick off this review, I would like to remind viewers that this game is in early access, and I have seen some content updates by the creator. Hopefully that will continue, because I think that will be a big benefit to this game, and you'll probably see why as I go through some of the elements of the review. I'll be using three main categories, which I think are important categories when you're examining the quality of a deck building game, especially a digital deck building game. First, I'll be going over battle mechanics. Second, I'll be going over replayability, and third, I'll be going over game content and concepts. Alright, let's kick off this audit with battle mechanics. Overall, I found the battle mechanics in Deck Hunter to be a bit uninspired, but with one caveat that I'll go over at the end of the battle mechanics section here. So the reason I say that they're a bit uninspired is because basically the whole battle mechanic system is pretty much just cut and paste of Slay the Spire. You have your base set of attack and defend cards, and you use those to control a single character, and they're basically used just like commands out of like an RPG menu. So that said, that's not necessarily a bad thing to have that battle system, but there is really actually like less card variety in this game, and the cards are really just little tweaks of attack and defend cards, unlike Slay the Spire, where there's a lot of cards that can sort of fundamentally change your strategy throughout the run. So this game, it sort of takes that same system but doesn't really add any additional content to it, and the content that is there is probably not done as well. Now for the caveat that I was discussing, this game does have a system that I appreciate in other RPG games that I haven't seen in other deck building games, which is combos. And who doesn't really love combos? I mean, they're great. You know, they're great in games. They're great as a snack. So at any rate, love the idea, but again, the ones that have been implemented in the game thus far that I've seen have very vanilla effects of just little tweaks to attack, defend, or heal. So I think this is a great idea, and I hope it gets expanded upon through the early access. So again, loved the combo idea. Need some more work on the overall battle system. Going to have to give a B ranking here. I really wanted to give it higher, but at this point I think that a B is a pretty reasonable ranking for the current state of the battle mechanics during early access. Alright, let's talk replayability. Of course, what I think to be really one of the core strengths to deck building games, particularly digital deck building games where you don't need to go out and find a friend to play with. And I'm going to be honest, on this game, I only have about 5 hours into this game in comparison to the other games that I've reviewed, where it's in excess of 40 hours of gameplay. So I might come back to revisit this review after early access. In terms of replayability, I think the fact that I have only put in 5 hours speaks a little bit to that might be lacking a bit in that department. Now, that said, the game again here delivers somewhat of a unique experience in that there are some persistent elements between runs where you can gather resources and craft items, which I think is a really neat addition, but something that you have to be careful with in a deck building game, because some of the draw to a deck building game is having a unique start from scratch experience each time that sort of pushes you to try out different things, and sort of has that sort of like, yeah, luck factor to it as you're going through your run, that if you have carryover type things that might detract from that element. So that said, um, the elements that have been added in terms of that carryover progression feels a little bit grindy, and but you're not really sure where you're going with it. So it doesn't really have that whole I don't know, that gameplay Skinner box kind of loop that really makes you want to keep trying to get whatever it is you're working towards. So that said, I'm going to give replayability a B as well. Um, Again, I think there's some neat ideas here, but there isn't anything so far in the game where I'm like, oh, I really have some challenges that I'd like to progress through on this game. So last, we're going to be going over game concepts and content. So just because I'm going to sound like a broken record here at the end of this section, I'm just going to go ahead and say that this is also getting a B ranking before I even go for why. And that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I'm a new content producer and that I'm too lazy to actually put a pop-up for anything but B. Not at all. Does not have anything to do with that. But anyway, B seems to be a justified ranking for the game content and concepts. I think that I'll go for the big plus first, which I think that graphically that this game is superior to a lot of the deck building titles that you find in digital deck builders. They seem to have more of a current gen feel to them, where other deck builders seem like something that, like if you were a platform player, they're the kind of graphics that you would be able to have gotten on the previous generation platform. I do have one gripe about the graphics, and it has to do with the main character's face. For some reason, the main character's face looks a little bit out of place, and it's not in an offensive way, but it's sort of Downsy looking, and I don't mean that to be like offensive to somebody with Down syndrome, but it's like I just can't think of a better way to put the face graphic. So it's just not really, I guess, appealing to me from a character design standpoint. And in terms of the rest of the content, I like the artwork style. The UI is laid out well. It's intuitive. There's a overworld map that has different routes to go through. So I think that it has pretty much standard fare in terms of execution of the game concepts. Content-wise, I think that I think this goes back a little bit to the other two categories where there just isn't enough variety so far in some of those concepts that they are trying to put into this game. So again, during the early access phase, I'm going to give this a B ranking. So that's it for this video. In case you didn't pick up on it, I think that currently that this is a slightly above average game. Fills maybe a little bit of a niche, but definitely not like a must-have kind of title that I'd recommend at this point. So if you like this video, please click like, and if you would like to see more content like this, please hit subscribe. Thanks.